So this is a new segment hosted by Taste the Local Difference, where we're talking with our friends and producers across the state of Michigan. And we're calling it late morning coffee because it's late morning on a Monday, and we're debuting this for coffee and enjoying coffee together. So, and talking coffee in this case. So Jen, can you introduce yourself to the wide world?
Yeah, hello, wide world. I'm Jennifer. I'm director of coffee at Higher Grounds here in Traverse City, and lately been doing a lot of working from home, brewing coffee at home, which isn't totally abnormal for me to brew coffee at home, even though I go to work every day in a normal world and brew coffee. I also brew coffee at home on the regular, so I'm just doing more of it these days. Higher Grounds is still roasting and selling whole bean packaged coffee. Our cafe is closed at the moment, but we're still plugging away in the roastery, moving a lot of coffee, keeping everybody's mugs full. So that feels good.
That's great. And we're so grateful for you to be doing that too. I don't know how I would get through COVID without Higher Grounds
coffee. For sure. Yeah.
So what have you been doing at home to get through these times besides brewing great cups of coffee?
Well, let's see, I do a couple of like online Pilates classes a week, trying to stay active, try to get outside, take some walks. I get a bike ride in because I do go to Higher Grounds a couple times a week to do quality control stuff and receive green coffee, check in with people. So it's a little different patterns. We did a crossword puzzle, a family activity.
Oh.
Sorry, not a crossword puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle is what I meant to say. We do crossword puzzles too, but a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. So that's kind of new. It's like a love-hate relationship I have with those things.
Sure.
It's so frustrating.
So frustrating.
But then very satisfying when you finish it.
Your brain working.
Yeah.
So that's a really nice, that's muscle strengthener. Totally.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So
you're about to do a cup of coffee, is that right? I've got some water boiling on my stove.
Yeah. I've got my Chemex right here. I wonder if I can turn the camera so you can see both me and my counter, which might be possible. I don't know. I might cut off my head, but we might get some of it if I back up a little bit. I've got my Chemex going. I've got some beans weighed out. I'm going to use a scale because I'm a nerd like that. You don't have to brew a great cup of coffee, but it helps. I have my water heating up. I actually haven't ground this coffee yet, so it's going to make a very, very loud noise. I wonder if I should mute that because it's going to be really loud. Yeah, like plug your ears. I might actually mute it because it's really going to sound terrible. So I'm going to step away for just 1 second and grind this coffee, which I should have done before this call, but I didn't think about it. So
it's part of the process. Part of the process.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, I am going to be listening for my water to boil. I've only got a simple French press going on over at my place. Bring that over while we're waiting.
All right. Got my Chemex. I've got my paper filter. Got a gooseneck kettle, water just off the boil. Got a timer. First, I'm gonna rinse this filter. That's step 1. So I rinsed my paper filter. This is a thing that you can do that will just take, no matter how you're brewing coffee, if you're using a paper filter in whatever brew method you're using at home, if you rinse that paper filter, you're gonna take the papery taste away out of that ultimate cup of coffee. So always a good thing. Paper has a taste.
Never thought of that.
You can do that with your Mr. Coffee or your Cuisinart, just rinse it under the faucet. Ideally with warm or hot water, because then it warms up, your brew funnel situation. So always a good thing. Don't forget to dump out the rinse water because otherwise then you'd be immediately diluting what you're doing. I'm brewing, like I said, I'm brewing on a scale. So I'm weighing this coffee. I'm using 32 grams of coffee and 500 grams or half a liter of water. But if you're not using a scale, it's roughly like two generous tablespoons per small serving, per like 6 ounces of water. So you can do it that way by volume, and it will still work. You don't need a scale. But if you want to geek out a little bit and get it exactly the same every time, then a scale helps.
No better time to geek out about things right now than
yeah, you've got time. I promise. You've got the extra few minutes it's going to take. I'm using a gooseneck kettle. So if you're doing any kind of pour over or manual brew, it helps to have this kind of really skinny spout, because otherwise it's hard to control the flow of the water through the coffee. So with a Chemex, I really want my water to move really slowly through the coffee. And if I just used, my other kettle, like this big guy, it would just dump in there all at once and it would be not quite as even. So this helps with that. So I usually preheat it in there, put it on the stove for a minute to get it back up to temp, and then use this guy. I also have a timer, but I'm just going to use it as a stopwatch, counting up to track my total brew time. Not necessarily that it has to be exactly the same every time, but it gives me benchmarks of like, oh, by this time I've poured about this much water. My total brew time for this is going to be like probably 4.5 or 5 minutes, something like that.
Okay.
Have you ever brewed a Chemex?
I have, but certainly not to this geek out extent, which I love. And I've never washed my paper filter before either. I never thought about, of course it has a taste to it. And that makes total sense. I've just never thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
My go-to now is mostly French presses. That's what I've got at home. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Also great. Also less waste, right? Like no paper to throw away. So I poured just a little bit of water over my bed of grounds, really like, let's see, I got about 80 grams. So a little more than double of my coffee weight in water just to saturate the coffee bed and give it like 30 to 45 seconds on the timer. And you'll see that it bubbles up during that time. It blooms. It's still off gassing. There's a lot of CO2 developed in roasting. And so it's still coming off of that freshly roasted coffee. Once that bloom kind of settles down, then it's good to wait until that happens before you continue pouring.
And as you're pouring, are you like moving around in a circle or having any kind of movement that way, or are you pouring in the exact same spot?
I kind of poured in a circle to start, just again to get everything evenly wet. My point is equal opportunity extraction. I want every little particle to gain access, to be able to give its goodness to the water. Mm-hmm. So there's no hard and fast rule about how you do that. You can see like I kind of swirl around a little bit just to get everything equal. And then once that's all even, then I can just pour down the middle slowly, steadily for a little while as well. I'm watching my timer count up because my benchmark for this size of a brew is to have roughly like 450 grams poured by 2.5 minutes. Again, like not a universal must be this way rule, but for me, it's a good way to make sure that every time I brew with this recipe, I'm brewing consistently. Mm-hmm. That I'm not messing with too many variables, ideally. If I want my coffee to taste the same every time, have the same strength and balance.
And so this is part of your role at Higher Grounds, correct? You're doing frequent cuppings and quality control based on those types of things.
Right. Yeah. Kind of in two different realms. I do a lot of brewing and tasting in two different realms. One of them is like internal quality control, recipe development, roast profile adjustments, working with the roaster, brewing the coffee to see how it's tasting for our customers and then maybe making adjustments to the roast. Also providing baristas with tasting notes so they can talk to customers about how this coffee is behaving, what it's tasting like. Mm-hmm. And then also on the public side, both public tours and tastings, which are unfortunately suspended at the moment, but in general, we had been doing Friday afternoon tours and tastings where I would do 2 chemexes like this, 2 different coffees side by side after doing a tour of our production facility. And then we bring a small group of people into my tasting lab and we taste 2 different coffees and talk about them and talk about same stuff I'm talking about to you, like how to brew or how to improve your coffee at home.
Yeah.
And then I also do training for our wholesale account baristas. So, baristas that work at cafes that serve our coffee. Also, either sometimes I'll travel to them or they'll come to us and we'll do trainings on all the things you need to know to be a barista. So that's super fun.
Yeah.
I get to brew coffee and taste it and talk about it, and magically I get a paycheck for that. It's dreamy.
Kudos.
Once all my water's poured in, now it's just waiting a little longer for it to all drip through the coffee bed. Wonder if I can
Yeah, that's what I want.
some up close action.
Yeah.
It's making its way down. We're at 4.5 minutes now. So what did I say? 4.5, 5 minutes,
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yep.
It's pretty close.
So as that's finishing up, can you share a little bit more with us about what makes Higher Grounds unique in the world of coffee roasters?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got started almost 20 years ago now when our owner and co-founder Chris was living in Southeast Mexico, and he got to know coffee farmers and learned about coffee. He was there as part of a postgraduate internship. So he didn't really have plans originally to start a coffee business, but through relationships with farmers there, ultimately landed on the notion of starting a coffee business, purchasing coffee from his friends in Mexico, roasting it here, selling it at local farmers markets. And that's what he did. He and his partner at the time, Jody, they roasted the coffee. They brought it to the farmers market.
Mm-hmm.
They had stories to share about Mexican farmers, and this community just embraced that. We have a lot of customers, coffee drinkers, who've been purchasing Higher Grounds coffee for almost 2 decades because they felt that connection right from the start. It's very much the same as local food movement, right? People want to know who's growing their food, where does their food come from, and to be able to hear the stories of the farmers that are producing the coffee they're drinking. Which is, not a locally grown product, but still, a local business, but with these ties to global farming communities all over the place, ultimately. So, we source coffee from about 12 different countries now, but we still buy coffee from that same co-op in Mexico, Maya Benique, where we started. And that's really important to us, to purchase coffee, not just cherry picking each year, what's good now, but to enter in the relationships with producer cooperatives for the long term and support them through that and to grow with them. So that's generally the model. A lot of the really so much of the coffee we've been buying from producers that we've known for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
We didn't start with 12 countries. We just started with Mexico because we didn't need that much coffee, and now we've grown quite a lot. So we are co-owners of an importing cooperative that helps facilitate those relationships with farmers. So that's something that's unique. Cooperative Coffees buys coffee from all over the world. Fair trade organic principles, which is super important to us, to be trading sustainably in a way that's actually good for farmers, focused on those long-term relationships. And through Cooperative Coffees, we can navigate those relationships and often go on trips to meet and visit the farmers, deepen those relationships, provide financing for special projects that they have. So 3 cents per pound of every coffee that we buy through Cooperative Coffees goes into a fund called the Impact Fund. And so every roaster within Cooperative Coffees is contributing to this fund. And then these farmers all over the world can apply or request funds for special projects that they have, like investments in their infrastructure or agricultural support or trainings. They can request money from that impact fund. And just a couple of weeks ago, our Cooperative Coffees board, which I actually sit on now, approved some emergency allocation of money from that fund for specific COVID relief projects and support. So that money is starting to go out, which is really exciting.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Hand washing stations in Eastern Congo. That's one of the projects or the funds allocation that's in the works that I've been kind of holding the hand of that one, because
Yeah.
Eastern Congo is near and dear to our hearts at Higher Grounds. And you'd think like hand washing, it's like it's the basic thing, right? It's what we're all told to do to protect ourselves. And if you're in rural Africa or rural middle of nowhere, you might not be able to wash your hands.
Right.
You know? So that's gonna be a big deal.
That's a huge deal. And it's so exciting that the coffee that you guys provide is not only like helping create businesses for these farmers, consistent business and markets for their products, paying them fairly as they should be paid, but then also reinvesting in their communities after that with the sales of those coffees. So that's really exciting. Right. That it's like that multi-pronged approach to support. It
really has to be, you know, like if we want coffee farmers to keep growing coffee, it's about more than just the price paid. That price paid is really important. It has to be a good price that's worth it to them. But they also have to be like healthy, engaged communities who have roofs over their head and food security and can grow other things besides coffee. You know, roads to their villages, like even that can make such a huge difference in quality of life. And if we're not looking at those things, I don't think we can call ourselves a sustainable coffee business. So that's kind of the model we're trying to adhere to and you know, and encourage other companies to do the same. And there's lots of great companies out there doing similar work.
That's great.
I'm going to pour myself a cup of coffee.
Please join me. So what's going on now as far as being able to purchase Higher Grounds coffee? I know you've got stuff in retail stores that folks can still gain access to. How are they purchasing, direct or online or any of that straight from you guys?
Right. Yeah. Definitely grocery stores are still going gangbusters. There's, you know, lots of places out there where you can just pick up a bag, but if you want to avoid going to the grocery store, there's also options. Even if you're local, we encourage people to order online. And then depending on where you are, if you're in Traverse City, with most Traverse City zip codes, we're offering free doorstep delivery. So, or as close as to your doorstep as we can safely get, kind of thing. So you don't have to leave your home. You can, you know, order coffee online and just have it show up for you when you need it. You can also come and pick it up from Higher Grounds. We do have staff, you know, at least one person in the coffee bar between 9 and 4 Monday through Friday. So if you choose hold for pickup when you purchase, then you can, you know, take a walk or a bike or, you know, a little errand out, get some fresh air, wave at us through the window and we'll hook you up. So, you know, we have had people also walk up, not sure if we're open, and we can kind of talk through like, okay, if you place an order on your phone right now, we can get that done for you. But it is easier if you just order in advance and then it's ready for you, or we'll deliver it. And we're shipping all over the place. Actually, right now, for the rest of today, free shipping.
Oh, that's great.
It's a Mother's Day promo. Trying to get people to buy coffee for their moms because our moms need coffee too. I sent my mom some coffee. She's in the UP. She needs the good stuff too. Yeah. So lots of options. We can still get you your Higher Grounds coffee.
That's great. Well, anything about brewing that great cup of coffee you just made, or Higher Grounds, or the current place we all find ourselves in that you want to leave people with as we end that?
Well, one thing I love about coffee is that it just is a connector, right? You know, it works as a vehicle or a vessel. Of course, it's a vessel, it's a mug with coffee in it, but it's a thing that brings us together. And even if you are just alone at your home drinking coffee by yourself, that cup is representative of connection to a world of people who have helped get it there, all the way from the individuals in those farming communities doing that hard labor in harvesting and processing and exporting that coffee, to the roasters and the, you know, wholesalers and the delivery people, all those people. There's so many people involved in it, and that's certainly not just coffee, right? I mean, we can tell the same story for food and all kinds of products that we consume, but I think it's good to be conscious of that and to appreciate that in our consumption. You know, it grounds us, it focuses us, but it also connects us to a wide world of people who are experiencing a lot of the same crazy things we are, you know, and there's comfort in that. And, you know, this too shall pass. We'll see the other side of this, and the world will keep changing and evolving as it does. And we'll be able to clink our mugs in person before too long. Ching ching. So,
Yeah,
cheers.
that's great and so true. We are a lot more connected than we often consider ourselves to be, and to be aware of it, to be conscious of it as we're taking that sip of coffee. That's great awareness and great advice. So
Yeah,
thank you.
you're not alone.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with future late morning coffees every Monday at 11. So thanks, guys.
Cheers, everybody.